This meeting of the Council of the Village of Glendale will now come to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as a matter of routine, I'm going to ask that people mute their electronic devices, just in case. I know, and speak louder into my mic. Got it. So, we have a quorum here, and Madam Clerk, can you confirm the quorum?
I confirm the presence of the quorum.
Okay, and we have an agenda that's been circulated without comment, which we will then follow. We turn to the approval of minutes of recent meetings and start with the regular council meeting on June 6th. Those minutes have been circulated, commented upon, and changed. Do I have a motion to accept these minutes as changed?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We also had a announced meeting on June 8th, and that was to allow members of council to sit in on training under the Ohio Sunshine Laws. We announced that meeting because everyone from council had been invited, and we didn't know how many were going to come. As it turned out, only 3 came from council. Others had actually taken the training before. And so we did not have a quorum. We therefore don't need minutes from that meeting, but I'm reporting it now just to close the loop on that announcement. And so the final meeting was a special council meeting on June 22nd, which was a town hall forum on village finances. And it also included an agenda item. Those minutes have been circulated and amended. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I don't have those amended minutes in front of me at the moment. Were they changed to show?
Yes, you're welcome. Take a look at the copy that I have. They did capture your change.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting these minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We turn to public comment and ask if anybody in the audience would like to address council. Come forward.
At least I don't need a phone book to stand on this time, so. Good evening, Mayor Lofty and council members and others. And it's my first time here, and if I don't make eye contact, it's because I don't want to wrench my neck because it goes a long way around. My name is Cynthia Brown, and I live at 20 Village Square, and I've been there for the past 6 years and used to live on Woodbine prior to that. I'm here tonight to discuss a fireworks incident that took place the evening of July 4th behind 960 Willow Avenue, which tenants reside in, not the owner. The fireworks were not small in nature and resulted in burning embers hitting not only the top of the building I live in, but also surrounding trees, the Boy Scout building, and even the city building. Ohio House Bill 172, as of July 1st of this year, has been designated specific holidays, specific days, and specific times, allowing for residential rights in regard to setting off fireworks from their own property. Yet it does not address or deter the possibility of damage and or injury in a community as small as Glendale's. Personal responsibility. Tenants don't have to assume the liability that the owners of the buildings will incur upon damages or personal injury. This could result in the onset of numerous unnecessary lawsuits. Glendale, as you all know, is a dog-friendly community, and for those dog owners who are unaware that fireworks are going to be set off in close proximity to their home without prior warning, do not have the advantage of protecting their dogs or their property. And that's the reason I'm here tonight, bringing this to you. Common sense has to factor in at some point, and let's just say that's been lacking in general for many individuals in these last few years, and I don't see that changing when setting off dangerous fireworks within our community. That would continue to happen. I am respectfully requesting that both the mayor and city council choose to opt out of this new law, as many other Ohio cities, townships, and villages have already opted to do so. Safety should come before that of Ohio's House Bill 172 regarding residential random fireworks. Let's keep Glendale family and dog friendly, not to mention safe, at all times. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I do have photos of the night in question on my iPhone, should any of you wish to see those.
Thank you. This is the sort of thing that needs to be taken up by a committee of council. With the agreement of council, I would propose that it be referred to the police committee, and that there will be a meeting where this would be an agenda item, and you would be invited to speak there and make your proposal, and then that could come forward to council with a recommendation from the committee.
Okay, thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for time and consideration.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address council?
Yes, I'm coming up. Hi, I'm accusing myself as clerk right now. I am here as a business owner and resident and in support of Cindy. My name is Becky Terrell, and I own Stitch's Quilt Shop, which was right next to where all the fireworks went off. And when they started to go off, Gary and I started to really worry because the fire load in our building, because it's full of fabric, is huge. And if that building were to go on fire, a lot of the square would probably be impacted because of the load in that building. So I am not opposed to fireworks. I don't have any problem with that. I just think if we don't opt into banning that, I think we need to opt into regulating where they can be set off, because if one thing goes up, we've already had the village burned down once back at the turn of the century. We don't want to have it happen again. So thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to participate in the subcommittee.
Okay.
So.
Does anyone else wish to address council?
Hi, my name is Kevin Parrish. I live at 176 Washington Avenue. I'd like to address council on the statement.
Can you speak a little closer to the microphone, please?
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to address council on the issues of the mayor proposed more honesty and transparency before the first of the year about our state of affairs that we're in. So you guys now are trying to give us a levy to cover the deficit, but you haven't disclosed the maintenance fees for the quiet zone, what that cost us, because we do incur that every year and have been incurring it since the quiet zone is in effect. Matter of fact, we've not even seen the committee of the people who rally for the quiet zone. They're awful quiet these days. But the maintenance fees do go on. Also, they haven't said anything about the amount of legal fees that were spent in defending public records that I put in for and trying to find out about the Dunley Company who worked on the Phase 1 sanitary sewer project on Cole Avenue, which was the main part that was damaged, marked for line replacement. Matter of fact, village administrator said they don't know of a Donnelly Company. But in researching documents, they had a pre-construction meeting which all contractors and subcontractors were supposed to be listed. Amazingly, there were no minutes for that, and the sign-in sheet has disappeared. This is village business. This is how they handle our business on a major contract on our sewer line with all the problems that we're having here. My lawyers tried to find out by asking about the reports that were supposed to be submitted. Coincidentally, those are not available either, although it's supposed to be public records. So here we have a company that's working on our sewer lines that we don't even know about. We have problems. So who the liability falls on for doing that work when you can't identify who it was? But as far as record keeping, under the Public Records Acts and the commission is quiet. They haven't met in 5 sessions, but they did meet this year at the 5th session. After 2.5 years, they have not put in any kind of protocol for how we do public records, and believe me, it's a sham. I know David does his best, but Wally was not here long enough to train him on how to lie effectively. But he's young, and he has a family to support, and got sucked in by the money. But I'll tell you this, we're not through. I mean, if this is the level of record keeping, and I wouldn't even say record keeping, it's so retarded. I mean, and you guys are educated. I only have a high school education, but I do my research. That's what the Princeton educational system did for me before it got to where it is now. Now, the public looks at me because I'm a black man coming up against this white superforce. And I understand that, because that's why we're trying to have conversation about racism.
You have about a minute.
Quite sure. Racism here in the village of Glendale. But you idiots have forgotten that this village was built by heroes that were abolitionists. And without them putting in safeguards about our green spaces and things, you fools would destroy all of this. But it's unfortunate that our business is so shameful that you don't even give it credit. You never even mentioned to the public about the Summit Park and the swamp incident. You deny mosquitoes when the GCIC said that it was a swampland when they were trying to develop it. 4 years gone and not done anything about it until they tried to put the tennis courts and paddleball on that. And then you get into negotiations with them like you got into negotiations with the people who are going to put change the meters.
Your time has expired.
And this important stuff is not important to the council. We have a full house waiting to address.
Mr. Parrish, your time is up.
Minutes. That shows the
Mr.
moral
Parrish, your time is
integrity
up.
that we have here. The moral integrity.
Your time is up,
or
Mr.
the
Parrish.
lack
Please
of
sit
it.
down.
The lack of it.
Mr. Parrish,
lack of it.
sit down, please.
And our mayor can come and lie to us anytime he wants to.
I just say for the record that because we listen to Mr. Parrish, which we do for every resident who comes to speak to us, and we do not always respond to everything that he says, it does not mean that we agree with it or that we don't have a response, and in many cases we do respond to it later in the meeting. So just putting that out for the record. Does anybody else wish to address council? Mr. Parrish, that's enough. Sit down. I'm talking to somebody who's disrupting this meeting. I take it nobody else wishes to speak to council. That ends the public comment period, and we turn to old business. The first item of old business is ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance inserting Chapter 154.59 in the Village of Glendale Code of Ordinances, establishing regulations related to residential and commercial signage in the Village of Glendale, as recommended by the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. This matter is, this ordinance is on the table at this point because it is pending comments from the Planning Commission, and I expect we will, I've talked with the chairman of the commission, I expect we will receive those comments in time for the meeting on August 1st, our next regular meeting. So my recommendation would be to leave this ordinance on the table. The next item is Resolution 2022-17, a resolution adopting a village property naming policy. This matter is also on the table. I would entertain a motion to remove it from the table so that it be discussed and considered by council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So the motion is the resolution is now off the table. This is a matter that came to commission from the Laws Committee through a great deal of diligent work under the leadership of our chairman, and anyone who would, it would spend now over a month since it first came to council. So I'm open to any discussion of this resolution, which adopts a policy on naming which is attached to the resolution. And it is considered guidelines, which is very clear, but they will be guidelines that, unless there is a very good reason for not following them, I expect they will be followed. Mm-hmm. So is there any discussion of this resolution or the policy that is accompanies it?
Mr. Mayor, I have a statement that I would ask council's indulgence in
I
allowing.
can't hear you, Marilyn.
I have a statement, and I ask council's indulgence while I read this into the video for the public to hear. My statement addresses the intent of this resolution, the guidelines in the resolution, very briefly, and the process, and reemphasizes that they are guidelines. Rather than continue, I'll just start reading. Resolution 2022-17 arises in the Laws Committee during 2017 with mentioning the village government's process or lack thereof for naming our public streets, parks, and other properties in honor of people or events associated with the village of Glendale. During that year, 2017, Administrator Cordis researched prior legislative actions, including Resolution 18, that had been officially adopted on August 4th, 1986, and in discussion with Mayor Lofty, initially drafted a resolution. No further action was taken until this year, in 2022, when that draft resolution from Administrator Cordis was presented to the Laws Committee. The committee deliberated and modified the draft during its meetings on February 23rd and March 31st of this year. An outcome is the committee's unanimous recommendation for this language that's being presented here in Resolution 2022-17. What's the intent of this resolution? The underlying intention with Resolution 2022-17 is simply to set standards going forth for council actions on the naming of Glendale's public streets, parks, and other properties and parts thereof in honor of people or events associated with Glendale, Ohio. This resolution does not call for re-recognizing any public street, park, property, or parts thereof that is officially recognized already. While there may be an honorary dedication, the historic recognition and name of Johnny Park at the corner of Walnut and Greenwood is well recognized in the village plan adopted by the Village Council on August 4th, 1944, in what is otherwise published as the Blue Book. The master plan also recognizes Johnny Park, and that master plan was adopted around the year 2000. And Johnny Park is also recognized in other village documents officially. So this resolution 2022-17 is not about recognizing Johnny Park. It's about setting up guidelines. What are the guidelines in resolution 2022-17 for? These guidelines on naming public properties or parts thereof are for setting basic principles as general guidelines in Section 1, setting standards through community recognition in Section 2.1, or through private contractual agreement in Section 2.2, in which there is a request for honorary naming of public property or parts thereof in Glendale, Ohio. And lastly, the guidelines are for placing limitations or restrictions on either community recognition or on the private agreements requesting such honorary naming. While consideration for the cost to place a permanent sign or plaque at the property site is mentioned in Section 3 of this resolution, that section does not require a permanent sign or plaque at the site. What's the process to have public property or parts thereof named in honor of an individual or an event associated with Glendale? Section 4 of Resolution 2022-17 provides for either the village, an individual, or a group to apply with a request through the village administrator's office. The administrator is to review and forward that request with a recommendation to council. Council, by majority vote, may forward the request to an appropriate committee, take no further action on the request, or act upon considering the recommendation, guidelines, and standards. Additional steps may include obtaining an agreement with the individual being honored, or, if deceased, the next of kin, or the authorized representative of an organization. Also, if a sign or plaque is to be part of the request, that sign or plaque may be regulated in the village code, aside from these naming guidelines. Lastly, the naming guidelines recognize that changing the name of a village property or part thereof may be undertaken by council where the named person or organization having been honored is found to be disreputable, immoral, or otherwise undeserving of the honor of being named on a Village of Glendale property. I'll close my remarks by emphasizing that Resolution 2022-17 is not self-executing, meaning it does not execute, it does not enforce or operate automatically. It merely sets forth guidelines for future actions by council on naming public properties in Glendale, Ohio. And I reemphasize throughout my remarks Glendale, Ohio, because we do know there are numerous other Glendales across the country. Having said that, Mr. Mayor, I do have 3 or 4 friendly amendments which correct clerical errors which are obvious in the resolution, if you'll hear those.
Sure.
Thank you. In section 2.3, capital C is in Charlie. The sentence should read, "The donation is inconsistent with public policy." It currently reads, "The donation is consistent with public policy." And we know a consistent donation with public policy is not limited or restricted or a reason to void it. Once again, that sentence should read, "The donation is inconsistent with public policy." And in section 4.3, capital A as in apple, the last line should read, "Or otherwise undeserving the honor of being named on a village lowercase property."
Instead of having its name, we could make it
It,
possessive there.
if you change the word "it,"
To-
what does it refer back to?
Okay. If you're saying it should read being.
I'm
named?
suggesting "or otherwise undeserving the honor of being named on a village property,"
Okay.
and to lowercase the property. And that concludes the clerical errors that came to my attention.
Okay. This resolution is already before council, having been moved and seconded at our last meeting. So, Ms. Duke, can I assume that you are moving as a friendly amendment these two changes?
Yes, I am.
And do I have a second for these, just to approve these changes?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, discussion of the resolution with the policy as amended. Is there any further discussion? In that case,
So the primary difference, I just need help getting my head around it. The main difference, and if this goes into effect compared to how it's been done in the past, is what?
There is a process in place, and there are standards in the form of guidelines. In the past, there were no clear guidelines, and the process was very dubious if it existed at all.
Thank you.
further discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, there's no waiving of three reads for a resolution. Would you call the roll?
For Resolution 2022-17, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith. Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carried, and good work to the Laws Committee and especially to the Chair. Turning to new business, Ordinance 2022-40, an ordinance amending certain sections of 93.99 of the Glendale Code of Ordinances, Health and Sanitation, Penalty, and declaring an emergency. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of this, which is that it is intended to apply mainly to our new ordinance on junk cars and clarify that the penalties for violation thereof are criminal and not civil. As criminal penalties, they can be taken before our mayor's court. And there is no change in the description of the violation. Do I have a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And do I have a motion to dispense with three reads?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For Ordinance 2022-40, to dispense with the three reads, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith. Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
For the ordinance, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is ordinance 2022-41, an ordinance authorizing amendment of 2022 appropriations of the Community Fund and declaring an emergency. Council will recall that this arises out of our decision that the funds for the police department's Needy Families Program should run through the village funds, and that donations run into the village fund and the community fund, and that expenses come out of it. Do I have a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And motion dispense with 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? This is pretty much what we did last year, I would say. Is that correct, David?
That's correct.
Okay. No discussion. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For ordinance 2022-41, to dispense with the 3 reads, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
For the ordinance, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
No.
Sorry, can you?
No.
Okay.
I opposed it last year as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that, we turn to ordinance 2022-42, an ordinance authorizing amendment of 2022 appropriations of the Fire Department Gift Fund and declaring an emergency. And I'm going to let either Ms. Masenko, Chair of the Fire Committee, or our Administrator introduce this ordinance.
Oh, we're having a nice guy fight, aren't we? This ordinance comes from the Fire Committees and Public Buildings Committee joint meeting, most recently, for the appropriation of donation funding that is being received through the generosity of Drs. Marty and Ron Vischer for the purchase of planters in the for the fire station, for the installation down in the east driveway to create a patio space for firefighters in the community. This appropriation ordinance covers increasing the revenues to account for this donation funding, as well as increasing the appropriations of the fund to allow for the purchase of these planters. And as soon as donation funds are received, the order will be placed.
Do I have a motion for the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And a motion to dispense with 3 reads?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, yes.
Yes. I was wondering if Mr. Fisher would care to comment inasmuch as he is present.
I believe that.
Can you speak closer to the mic, Ron?
My name is Ron Vischer. Is this close enough?
Keep talking.
Closer.
There,
Closer.
better. No, you had it.
Okay, I hear an echo of myself now, so it's more difficult to comment. But I think the matter has been discussed at some length in the Fire Committee and Buildings Committee, and I think that given that's everyone, I think, except you, Marilyn, quite honestly, I think that there's no need to add additional comment other than to say it was part of the original scope of the gift that we had given to the village to improve the living space for the firefighters.
Well, as on behalf of the village, I would just like to repeat what has been said many times, but it bears repeating. Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you from the heart, from the village. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
For ordinance 2022-42, to dispense with the 3 reads, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
For the ordinance, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith, Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We turn to Resolution 2022-18, resolution authorizing the Village of Glendale, Ohio to enter into an agreement for the purchase of natural gas for the Village of Glendale Natural Gas Aggregation Program. Mr. Lumsden, can you give us some background here?
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is identical to what was passed by council in 2020 for the renewal of the natural gas contract for the energy aggregation program that the village operates to the benefit of residents and businesses. As you can see in Section 1, it authorizes me to sign a contract with a vendor as recommended by our energy consultant for a period not to exceed 24 months. That rate will be better than the Duke Energy rate price to compare, which is published monthly through Duke Energy. This program has secured a competitive rate on energy, both natural gas and electric, for our residents, so we're excited to continue that.
Thank you. Is there a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For Resolution 2022-18, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution 2022-19, a resolution requesting the county auditor to certify the current tax valuation of and the amount of revenue that will be produced by an additional 2.5 mil levy to provide funds for the current general operating expenses of the Village of Glendale, Hamilton County, Ohio, pursuant to Section 5705.19A of the Ohio Revised Code as required by Section 5705.03B of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Lumsden, can you give us some brief background here?
Certainly, Mayor. Thank you. This resolution is requesting, as discussed in the Finance Committee meeting, the auditor to certify the amount of estimated revenue that the village can anticipate should a 2.5 mil levy be placed on the ballot and passed. Following the passage, a hopeful passage of this resolution, we will make that request to the auditor, and then coming up in the August meeting, present a resolution putting that question to the ballot in November. Thank you.
Do I have a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For Resolution 2022-19, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm ask you bear with me in that I have to read this whole, the law requires that I read this whole title into the record, even though in the substance, this resolution is simply seeking certification of, based on a 2.75 mil levy as opposed to the 2.5 mil levy that we just discussed. So this is a resolution requesting the county auditor to certify the current tax valuation of and the amount of revenue that will be produced by an additional 2.75 mil levy to provide funds for the current general operating expenses of the Village of Glendale, Hamilton County, Ohio, pursuant to Section 5705.19A of the Ohio Revised Code as required by Section 5705.03B of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion for this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
I don't think we need any further comment from Mr. Lumsden, but does anybody else have a comment on this? Okay. It's basically, we're looking at two different possible levies, and we haven't made a decision yet which we're going to go with. So, with that, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
For Resolution 2022-20, Mr. Bessel.
Aye.
Ms. Duke.
Aye.
Ms. Masenko.
Aye.
Mr. Basemith.
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler.
Aye.
Ms. Baldrige.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We turn now.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
yes, I think it's worthwhile and very important to reiterate what you had said earlier. These two resolutions are for the village to obtain information from the county auditor's office. It's not to place the additional levies on the ballot, and it shouldn't be confusing to the public in that we are not suggesting in any way that both of these levies be placed on the November ballot.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. We turn now to Resolution 2022-21, a resolution submitting the question of renewing the existing 8.5 mil tax levy to provide funds for current operating expenses of the Village of Glendale, Hamilton County, Ohio, pursuant to Section 5705.19A of the Ohio Revised Code. This is basically a renewal of the 8.5 mil levy, which is due to expire on December 31st, and it will allow that levy to carry over into the next 4-year period starting in January 2023. Do I have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? Madam Clerk?
For Resolution 2022-21, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I have one question for our administrator. Do people have to sign this, or do we just fill in the names here?
No, I fill in the names, and then
Okay.
we'll get this submitted to the county this week.
Thank you. Just wanted to be sure. We turn now to a resolution that is on our agenda, Resolution 2022-22. This is a verbal resolution adopting the Village of Glendale estimated tax budget. Mr. Lumsden, can you give us a little explanation here?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. As is tradition every year, we have a public hearing, as we did this evening at 6 p.m., to review the estimated tax budget for the upcoming year. This document is mandated by the state that we complete for all funds that the village operates. It is an estimated budget, so by no means of what is listed in this budget is finalized, but simply shows to the state and to the county that we are aware of the money that we have in each of our funds and what our anticipated expenditures may be, of course, and this is useful for the public as well. The final budget process takes place near the end of the year, so this document is merely a state requirement that we fulfill. So a copy was distributed with the council packet and is available on our website. At the public hearing, Mr. Vischer did point out a minor math error. We've corrected that in the draft. So that will be updated online, and then the corrected version will be sent down to the county. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Do I have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
For Resolution 2022-22, Mr. Bessel,
Aye.
Ms. Duke,
Aye.
Ms. Masenko,
Aye.
Mr. Basemith,
Aye.
Mr. Kreidler,
Aye.
Ms. Baldridge.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We turn now to the reports from the mayor, administrators, standing committees, and special committees. And I'll begin with the mayor's report. In births and deaths, we have had no births reported. We had a death reported in May, late May, which did not make it onto the agenda in June, and that was Betty Francis. She's the wife of resident Thomas Francis, and she passed away on May 27th, 2022, at the age of 91. I guess we have not heard, we haven't heard, we have another one, but we haven't confirmed it yet, and we don't like to do that unless we are very sure. So we're gonna wait on that one. So with that, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Mrs. Francis. May she rest in peace. Continuing, we had the annual Glendale Gathering of Historic and Collector Vehicles, which we generally refer to as the Glendale Car Show. It was held on June 26th in the Village Square. We had 83 vehicles, that includes motorcycles, that were exhibited there. And I want to send out our thanks to Steve Locker and his committee for the tireless and very successful work that they did on this event. It's become one of the highlights of the summer in the village. I also want to note that the thanks go because much of the proceeds from the event will be donated to various Glendale charities. So it works out well for everyone there. On that same day, June 26th, we had the Cincinnati Civic Orchestra concert, and this was a celebration of the 90th birthday of composer John Williams. Mr. Williams' music is, if not his name, is very well known. He did the music and scores for the movies like Harry Potter and E.T., and especially from virtually all of the Star Wars movies and the spectacular music there. I want to thank the conductor of the Cincinnati Civic Orchestra, Larry, our own Glendale resident, Larry Bonhouse, for the incredible amount of work that he and the members of the orchestra put into making this such a great event. I'd also like to send a special thanks to the Glendale firefighters, who there were several of them on duty when, as the time for the concert was approaching, some dangerous clouds were approaching on the weather screen for our various electronic devices, and we made the quick decision to move the event indoors. And in fact, that event was held right in this very room where we're sitting now. And the firefighters set to work setting up chairs for the audience and for the orchestra. And they were even able to get additional chairs from Harry Whiting Brown. It was done with a great speed and effectiveness that we expect from our fire department, and we thank them. Chief? On June 22nd, we had a town hall forum concerning village finances. And we had about 50 residents attend, which I think was pretty good for talking about finance. Our administrator, Mr. Lumsden, presented the budget to date and financial projections, which unfortunately showed that the village was going to be running deficits starting in the year 2023, maybe even a slight one this year, and continuing to grow in the following years, unless the village took steps to raise additional revenue. There was a discussion of possible increases in the property tax, which you've heard referenced to tonight, and even to the establishment of an income tax. The discussion, this discussion of these options carried over to the meeting of the Finance Committee, which was held the following week, and I will let Mr. Bessel cover that subject. So tonight you have heard some of the results of that meeting, the discussion of possibly 2.5 or 2.75 mil levy being placed on the ballot, in addition to the very necessary renewal of the 8.5 mil levy. and there will be more discussion of those subjects in the near future. Finally, I'd like to just give a shout out. If the fire department got its praise, now it's the police department's turn. Our Glendale Police Department was named Department of the Year by the Hamilton County Crisis Intervention Team. I'm going to hold the plaque right up that the chief just showed me. And so I want to make sure that ICRC gets this on, and I'm getting a nod that they have, so good. And I will rather than steal his thunder any further, I will let the chief report further on that. And with that, we turn to the village administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a few things for this evening's report, so I'll make them quick. The banking request for proposals documentation is published and available on our website, glendaleohio.org/bankrfp. It is being sent or has been sent to some potentially interested banks. We're looking forward to receiving those results in August and then hopefully have a report back for the September meeting. Second is the work is ongoing now with our utility engineer, on the water meter replacement project. That work will include a specification as well as pre-bid meetings with potential vendors to discuss projects and next steps. The other thing that will be of interest to the public is included in this project is an upgrade to our billing software. So gone are your little green postcards, and things like email billing and online account management will be made available. It helps streamline and kind of modernize our billing process. So we're excited to get that rolling out here in the next few months. The demolition and lien process for 65 Coral is complete. The lien is on the property at the county level, so we are waiting for payment on that lien to recoup the cost for demolition. Our EPA required consumer confidence report is published on our website. Mentioned that at the last meeting as well, but that's important. It shows that the village's water quality is exceeding EPA standards. The continued work on the project at Oak and Albion is ongoing between the village's engineer and Bethany's engineer. More to come at that at the Streets Committee meeting later this month. And finally, I addressed some questions with residents directly following the town hall that the mayor mentioned, and of course encourage anyone else that has any questions to reach out to me. I'd be happy to discuss those things with you. If there are no other questions, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Very good. Madam Clerk, would you call for the committee reports?
Finance Committee, please.
The Finance Committee did meet, and the outcome of that meeting was the resolutions, both resolutions that we passed this evening regarding an additional property tax levy. One of the two of those may be put on the November ballot, or it's possible that an income tax could be considered. The 8.5 mil levy is a levy that's been in place for a number of years. It is what supports the village services that we all enjoy now. It's very important that we pass that levy. The additional levies we mentioned are to help to support the village going forward. As the mayor mentioned, we would be running a deficit in 2023 and the years going forward without additional revenue. So more to come on what exactly will be on the November ballot, if anything, to help offset those projected deficits. There are no meetings scheduled for the Finance Committee at the moment. We will probably schedule a meeting offline. Thank you. That's it for Finance.
Thank you. Fire Committee, please.
Fire Committee met twice during the month and also twice in a joint meeting with the Buildings Committee, but I'll leave that for Mr. Kreidler to talk about. But on the Fire Committee meetings, in our two meetings this past month, we continued the discussions on replacing our 23-year-old fire truck. It is a complicated matter, but the minutes are posted online if you'd like to look at that. And that's really all I have, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Yetter.
Thank you. I want to report to the village tonight, we received a $500 grant for CPR equipment for the fire.
Chief, can you get closer to your microphone?
I wanted to let the council know that we received a $500 grant for EMS equipment, which is actually for CPR mannequins. So we just got that. Our report encompasses this month we did 44 runs in the village, 7 outside the village, and again, training is the mainstay of the department right now, and we want to thank you all for your kindness.
Thank you. Laws and claims, please.
Yes, laws and claims did not meet since last month.
Thank you. Police committee, please.
Police did not meet in June, and with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you. The CIT award that the mayor had mentioned was an award that we received. Josh, Officer Helling, put in for it. He nominated us, and we received that award based on our commitment to, one, get everybody through the CIT program, which I think is a major accomplishment for our small department, and two, with the way we handled a couple mental health issues here in the village over the last year with a couple residents that we had. That's all on that. Cruiser 4 will be back in service later this week or early next week. It has been out of service for about 5 months now with an engine issue. I got word yesterday that the engine is in, so hopefully we'll have it back in the next week. Last but not least, Officer Gruber had surgery on Wednesday. He had his right foot amputated. He is doing fine. He's actually ahead of schedule at this point with his progress and his therapy, to the point they have decided not to do in-house physical therapy on him, but they're going to discharge him tomorrow from the hospital and send him home. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Public buildings and historic preservation, please.
Public buildings met twice, met June 7th and July 6th with the fire committee. It was the joint special committee. And those minutes are both posted, or the June ones are posted, the July ones we posted this week. But it's what we voted on earlier tonight. We started with discussing the fencing, and then it went to we finalized on we voted on the flower planters rather. And I believe that is our last meeting, knock on wood. So thanks for everyone's help for the last 2 years. And on June 7th, we had a very quick public buildings meeting within that joint meeting, and Finance Chairman Bessel presented some financials to us about the CF Bank building, and we recommended public buildings recommended 3-0 to move it to council about either renting when CF Bank leaves on August 31st. We'll either rent that or try to sell the building, but first we recommended the GCIC take it up for discussion. So at their next meeting, they'll discuss it, and then at some point it will likely get to council, and then we'll vote on it. But so that passed the buildings committee, public buildings, 3-0. And that was about a 10-minute meeting, and that is it, Becky.
Thank you. Recreation and playgrounds, please.
Recreations and playgrounds did meet on June 13th. Those draft minutes should be up on the website. The primary discussion topics at that meeting were about, we viewed some renderings of possible playground equipment options for Summit Park and for the vintage equipment that we have there. The other item that we discussed was, we heard from Vivian Melody from Bethany School Sisters of the Transfiguration. She was loosely sharing some ideas about project in the East Oak Road Greenbelt area and how to improve accessibility, maintenance, walking trails. So nothing concrete there, but just kind of a sharing of ideas. And then we had some light conversation about, in general, maintenance of green spaces and ways to improve usefulness and accessibility of the spaces going forward. There's no meeting scheduled yet. I hope to schedule one in the next few weeks, and we will probably be meeting with representatives of the Brock Foundation at that point to further discuss the proposal regarding courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Streets, public improvement, and lights, please.
The Streets Committee did meet, and we currently have another meeting scheduled for the 25th. That's a Monday, July 25th. The meeting mainly took on the subject of the water issues that are over around Hedgerow and Albion, and the joint efforts with Bethany School, the Sisters of the Transfiguration, the residents in that area, and the village of Glendale to try to control the stormwater in that part of the village better. We're making very good progress. As a matter of fact, Bethany does, or I should say the Sisters of the Transfiguration, do expect to present their plan for the northern section of their property on the 25th. And they will also have some information about some of the southern parts of their property and how that is somewhat affecting some of the neighbors on the other side of Hedgerow. So we're anxiously looking forward to that meeting. We will coordinate with the Society of the Transfiguration on our work, which will be stormwater improvements along Hedgerow and Albion and street improvements along Hedgerow and Albion. And we'll also be doing work for water mitigation in the Oak Road Greenbelt area. That's it for streets.
Thank you. Utilities, please.
Utilities did meet in June on the 3rd. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss acquisition and installation of new smart water meters and to discuss the appropriation of $71,750 for engineering fees to design and implement and review bidding of the various vendors. That discussion ended with approval of that amount for the administrator to proceed. The agenda had included getting some discussion on the CMOM, but because the meeting ran an extended time, we had to schedule that for a later meeting, which we will try to do in July. That's report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry,
Yes.
before you move, both Chief Yetter and I neglected to mention something. Chief, you might want to talk about October 8th.
I'm sorry, folks. October 8th is a pancake breakfast right here in this hall. And right now we have collected all the donations that we previously had in regards to pancake batter, milk, coffee, and also breakfast sausage for everyone. A lot more donations are coming in. We will have gift baskets for people to bid on, and we look for a good turnout. We do have a anonymous donation for printing the tickets this year because the person we had did move out of the village. So that will be coming out shortly, and we look to have a great turnout. That is Fire Prevention Week, and we got lucky to time it all on that date. Thank you.
And thank you, Chief, for reviving this long Glendale tradition of a pancake breakfast. Thank you, Ms. Masengo, for reminding us of this. And to those who may be listening, remember, you heard it here first. And with that, I'm going to turn to reports from the Clerk and Treasurer. Madam Clerk, do you have a report?
Yes, following the meeting, the town hall where we talked about the budget, there were a lot of questions that came up about reporting And I just wanted to say those will be worked on eventually, but our primary focus right now is the UAN transition, which is in progress. So we don't want to do a lot of reporting work on the system that we're going to shut down. So we're going to take all the feedback and the ideas and stuff and hold them in our pocket until we've got UAN up and running, and hopefully that will be a much easier and faster reporting mechanism.
Thank you. And Mr. Treasurer?
So I've forwarded our investment report for June to council, and I need to commend the mayor for noticing that our returns for the month of June were considerably less than the month of May. For those of you that may not have noticed, it was about 1/3 of what we collected in May. So I explained to the mayor the way our revenue comes in. It's monthly. Some of these investments are rather monthly, quarterly, semi-annually. So the amount of money that flows into our coffer depends on when those entities actually provide that return to us. But we're on track to meet our commitments of, I think we have 150,000 or 160,000. And we're probably going to be exceeding that. Just bought some treasuries above 3%, and I think the feds are going to be raising some more. So I'm hoping that we can continue to buy some things a little higher than that. So,
What were we getting before on our investments?
well, the lowest we got was 0.5.
Yeah, so we're up from 0.5 to 3%. That's
So-
better. That's better.
We're making some progress.
Right. Before I turn to the financial reports, I'm just going to mention one thing here. As I said when Mr. Parrish was speaking, because we don't respond directly doesn't mean we agree with what he says. Much of what he talked about has already been discussed before, has been the subject of litigation, which, in which the village has prevailed. He did mention something new, which was the expenses for the quiet zone, and saying that we had not disclosed those expenses, what those had cost the village. The fact of the matter is the quiet zone cost the village nothing. All of the money for the quiet zone came from private donations, and we still have money in the fund for future maintenance. So with that,
There's one more.
what? Oh,
Okay. Mark Constable for Howard. He was the
okay. As I said at one point, we did have reports of a recent death of a longtime village resident. That would be Howard Constable, who passed away recently. He had gone over the age of 100, and he's beloved. We had done a wonderful interview with him on the occasion of his 100th birthday on the This is Glendale program, and there will be more coming on this later. So with that, I'm going to report that the Village Council has received some financial reports from the administrator. The 2022-06 general checking certification for the payment of certain bills, the 2022-06 enterprise checking certification for the payment of certain bills, and the council financial summary of expenditures by fund, and noting that the all-important general fund is, after the 6-month mark of the year, at exactly 50.16%, which means half the year is done and we have used up half our budget. So that shows good financial planning and shows that we're on the right track. With that, I will point out that the next regular council meeting is going to be August 1st at 7 o'clock. It will not be upstairs here in Town Hall. It will be downstairs in the council chambers. We have, as you know, moved to upstairs because of a need for better distancing under these trying times of COVID. But on August 1st, we must meet downstairs because there will be an election, primary election, held upstairs here on the following day, and they will need to set up. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.